Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're pulling back the curtain on the system your city uses to turn its biggest promises into actual progress. It's a whole framework designed to hold them accountable, and we're going to show you exactly how it works.
Think about it. It's a huge question, right? When a city government lays out a big 5-year plan promising everything from better roads to safer communities, how do they know if they're on track? And more importantly, how do you know if they're keeping those promises? How do you even begin to measure success on that massive scale? Well, it all starts with something that honestly looks a lot like a report card.
And that report card, it's got an official name, the corporate scorecard. Just think of this as the city's master plan, the one single document that lays out the entire vision for their term in office.
Okay, let's get a little more specific here. The corporate scorecard is officially known as the Service Delivery and Budget Implementation Plan. Yeah, I know, it's a mouthful, so everyone calls it the SDBIP for short. But it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the plan that makes sure the services you actually get are directly linked to the money being spent. This is where the city's biggest, most important goals get written down and tracked.
But here's the thing, and this is absolutely key. A goal is pretty much useless if it's vague. For this scorecard to actually work, every single objective has to be crystal clear. It can't just be some fuzzy promise. So, how do they make sure these goals are solid? Well, they use a framework that you've probably heard of before.
That's right. Every single target, every key performance indicator or KPI on that scorecard has to be SMART. It's got to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. This simple little acronym is what transforms those vague promises into concrete, trackable targets that can't be wiggled out of. But, the city isn't the only one setting the rules of the game here.
Turns out, there's another really important layer to all of this. A national standard that every single municipality in the entire country has to follow. It's like a national rule book that ensures everybody is playing by the same basic rules.
And this rule book is called MFMA Circular 88. It comes straight from the National Treasury. And probably the easiest way to think about it is like a national curriculum for cities. Its whole purpose is to make sure that no matter where you live, your local government is being measured against a similar, standardized yardstick. And this is where things start to get really interesting.
So, here you have the central challenge, the real balancing act. On one side, you've got the city's own unique plan, its local priorities based on its corporate scorecard. And on the other, you have these standardized national requirements from Circular 88. The city's job is to constantly make sure these two things line up. And watching how they do that, well, that's where this plan really comes to life.
So, enough with the theory. Let's look at what this alignment process actually looks like in the real world. We're going to dive into some concrete examples of how this corporate scorecard literally changes from year to year.
Okay, check this out. This shows just how fast the city has to adapt to changing circumstances. The target for roadblocks, specifically for drinking and driving, more than doubled, jumping from 252 all the way up to 676. So why the huge leap? Simple. COVID-19 restrictions were lifted, which meant law enforcement could finally get back to full operations. The goal got way more ambitious because the opportunity was finally there.
Now, it's not always about targets going up. Here's a perfect example of how real-world economics forces a change. The target for building subsidized housing units was actually reduced. Why? Well, the cost to build a single unit shot up, but the funding from the national government didn't. So to keep the goal achievable, remember our SMART principles, the target had to be adjusted to reflect that new financial reality.
And this whole alignment process isn't just about tweaking the numbers on old goals. As the city develops new systems and new ways of doing things, it can add entirely new ways of measuring its progress. The scorecard itself actually evolves. For instance, a brand new KPI was added to the scorecard to track the upgrading of informal settlements. This was only possible because the city developed a whole new system to actually measure it. So now the city, and just as importantly you, can track progress on this critical priority with way more accuracy. But what happens when the national rules of the game are still being written?
Now this is a really interesting one. Some key environmental indicators for things like air and coastal water quality were temporarily removed from the scorecard. Now that might sound bad, but it's not because they aren't important, they're absolutely crucial. It's because the national rules for how to report on them haven't been finalized yet. So to make sure everything aligns perfectly down the road, they've been paused, ready to be switched back on the second those national standards are officially in place.
Okay, so we've seen the mechanics, the targets, the adjustments, but why?
Why go through all this incredibly detailed work? At the end of the day, it all comes down to one simple, powerful word: accountability.
First things first, none of this is optional. This entire process is a legal requirement. We're talking about a formal, legally binding system designed to make absolutely sure the city's plans are transparent, that they're realistic, and that they're in line with the law of the land.
And there's another major player keeping an eye on things: the Auditor General. This quote from the source material is so telling. It says that many of these changes and new indicators are a direct response to things the Auditor General found. You can't get much clearer than that. This is public accountability in action. The country's top financial watchdog points something out, and the city has to adjust its plan to address it.
So, what's the bottom line here? What does all this mean for you? Well, it means the city is legally required to have a clear plan and actually follow it. It means they have to listen to the Auditor General. And it means there's a system in place that's specifically designed to create better, clearer, and more transparent government for all of us.
So there you have it. The internal mechanics, the national rules, the scorecards. The city has a complex and detailed system for measuring its own performance. So the final question really is for you. Now that you know how the system is supposed to work, how will you use that knowledge to measure its success? Thanks for watching.